Hey guys! So in this video I'm going to cover as much Python programming as possible in 10 minutes. So Python is one of the world's fastest growing programming language, built mainly for data analysis. However, it can also be used to create websites, build applications and games as well. By the end of this video, you will know the basic fundamentals of Python. So no furthermore, let's get started. And before we start, I would like to mention that you need a Python interpreter in order to program in Python. A Python interpreter is a program that reads and executes Python code. Interpreters bypass the compilation process and execute the code directly. The interpreter can be found on your system under your Python folder. You can do a simple Google search for Python download and you will be able to download the IDE and the package as well. In Python, you can store data using variables. So to create a variable, you first give it a name and set it equal to a value, in this case a string. Strings in Python use either double or single quotes. The choice is yours. Assigned variables can also consist of an integer, long integer, double float, list, tuple, and a file. You can also add multiple variables together. So here we have our variable hello YouTube and our b variable 123. Let's add them together and call them for c, which are going to be a plus b. Press enter and here you go. Please note that variables in Python are case sensitive, meaning the programming language will react differently upon uppercase and lowercase. When working with any programming language, you should include comments in the code to notate your work. So to comment in Python, we use the hash to create a single line comment, or we can use multi-line comments with 3 double quotes and put in our comment here and end with 3 double quotes. The recommended method for commenting is by using hash on each line. The 3 double quotes is not actually a comment but defines a text constant of the text between the double quotes. It is not displayed, however it exists and could potentially cause unexpected errors. Keywords in Python are reserved words that cannot be used as ordinary identifiers. They must be spelled exactly as they are written. This is a list of keywords for the Python programming language. You can also print a list of keywords by writing import keyword and print out keyword.keywordlist. Boolean values are true constant objects, false and true. They are used to represent truth values. True or false are written as false and true, respectively. A string in Python can be tested for true value. The return type will be a Boolean value, true or false. Let's make an example by creating our first new variable and give it a value. Let's create a variable myString that equals to a string hello world, and we can test if the string ends with an d. Write myString dot ends with brackets single quotes d. To see what the return value will be, we simply print it out. As you can see, the code returned true. Python includes the addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, modulus, and exponentiation operators. Assume a variable a holds 10 and a variable b holds 20. Then a plus b will give 30. A minus b will give minus 10, a multiplied by b will give 200, b divided by a will give 2, b modulus a will give 0, a exponent by b will give 10 to the power of 20. The basic comparison operators such as equal, less than, greater than or equal, and so forth are used on all manner of values. Numbers, strings, sequences, and mappings can be all compared. The following table shows a list of comparison operators. So if we want a certain action to only happen in certain circumstances, we would say if 1 equals 1, print of course. Or if 1 equals 2, print of course. And as you can see, the code did not run. The logical operators and or also return a Boolean value when used in decision structure. There are 3 logical operators and, or, and not. For example, x is greater than 0 and x is less than 10 is only true if x is greater than 0 and less than 10. Whenever something goes wrong with your program, sometimes the program doesn't have to crash. Sometimes the error can be caught as an exception and can hopefully continue to run. So an example of an exception is a list with 2 items, where the first item is at index 0 and the second is at index 1. But if we try to print out index 2, the program will only print out a big ass index error. So I can set try, and I can try to print out an element from our list that doesn't exist. And of course, it doesn't exist, so it's going to give us that index error. So what I can say is except index error, print item not in list. This will get rid of the big ass error codes and provide you with the necessary information. The simplest data structure in Python is used to store a list of values. Lists are collections of items, such as strings, integers, or even other lists. Each item in the list has an assigned index value and are separated by a comma. Lists are enclosed in square brackets. Lists are created using comma-separated lists of values surrounded by square brackets. Lists hold a sequence of values and are very easy to create. These are some of the ways you can make a list. Each of the items in the list holds an index number. In order to get the items out, we need to know its position in the list. So this position is 0 and this is position 1. So if I say mix list square bracket 1, it will print out red. And if I say mix list square bracket 0, it will print out yellow. We can also add list together. So I could say mix list plus a new list consisting of 5 integers. Now we have a new list consisting of 5 strings and 5 numbers in it. That's another great thing with Python. Lists automatically resize and can store any data types or any multiple data types. Finally, we have set. So set is just like a list, except it doesn't have order and it doesn't have a repetition. So to create a set in Python, we create a variable and use 2 curly brackets and give it a list of values. And I'm going to intentionally put repeated values. Save that. Now we're gonna look at our set. And as you can see, there's no repeated values. Everything I repeated was just ignored when we first created the set. So dictionaries are just like lists, except in order to access data in a dictionary, you'll need to use its name instead of its position. So every item in a dictionary has a name, which you call a key, like name, Kevin. So I create a variable called C and I use 2 curly brackets to say what we want to create in a dictionary. And its key is going to be name and it's going to give us back the string Kevin. So if we were to print out our variable with name as indentation, we will get the string Kevin printed back. That would be called an associated array in other languages such as PHP, for example. To keep a computer doing useful work, we need repetition. Looping back over the same block of code again and again. In Python, we have 2 kinds of loops, the for loop and the while loop. The for loop is used to iterate over elements of a sequence. It is often used when you have a piece of code which you want to repeat n number of times. It works like this. For all elements in a list, do this. Let's say you have a list, computer brands. For brands in computer brands, print brands. That reads, for every element that we assign the variable brands in the list computer brands, the for loop is going to print out the variable brands. The while loop tells the computer to do something as long as the condition is met. Its constructs consist of a block of code and a condition. It works like this. While this is true, do this. We have the same list of computer brands, but this time we have a variable I equals 0, while I is lower than the length of computer brands, print computer brands, and then we add 1 more to the variable I. As long as the value of the variable I is less than the length of the list, which is computer brands, the while loop is going to print out the variable name. We use functions in Python in order to reduce code tasks into simple tasks. Functions let us reuse code, split up the code between developers, and gives us an easier debugging process. In order to create a function, you must define it before using it. The function block begins with the keyword def, followed by a function name and its parenthesis. The function has to be named plus specify what parameter it has. Function can use a number of arguments. Every argument is responding to a parameter in the function. The function often ends by returning a value using return. Here I have created a function to get an user input and return the username. You can go ahead and try it for yourself. Very often we want to check the conditions and change the behavior of the program. We want to write programs that has more than one choice of actions depending on a variable's value. Perhaps the most well-known statement is the if statement. You can use the if statement to perform one action if one thing is true, or any number of other actions if something else is true. In Python, we have 3 different conditional statements: if, elif, and else. The syntax of the if statement is if an expression, then the statement. Sometimes there are more than 2 possibilities. In that case, we can use the elif statement, which means that if the original if statement is false, then the elif statement is true. An else statement can be combined with an if statement. The else statement is an optional statement, and there could be at most only one else statement following if. The syntax of an if-else is if expression, then a statement, else another statement. So here's an example. If password equals hello, print password accepted, else print sorry, wrong password. We can also create objects in Python. So we would use an object for object-oriented programming. So say we want to create an object for people. We would create an object for a person. To do that, we would create a class called person. And we create a special function called __init__, which is called a constructor. We pass it in the value self. Every method in Python object starts with the variable self. So a constructor is a function that is run when we create our objects. So I'm just going to print new person. Now that we have created our person class, which is the blueprint for our person object, so we can go ahead and create a new person object by saying p equals person, just like that. And you can see our constructor was called when we created the object and printed it out. And there is our person object. We can also use inheritance because that's one of the core concepts of object-oriented programming. So say I wanted a more specific class called Kevin. Inside these round brackets, I can say person. That will mean I can use any of the methods and functions from the person class. So what I write is super init to call this special init function. Now I have my Kevin class. And finally, we're going to cover libraries, or also known as modules. So in Python, we use modules because we don't want to type everything over and over again. So if I import the math library, and if I say print math.py, it prints out the value of pi, because my program did not know that until I imported the math library. On the screen, you can see the list of the most used libraries in Python. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and if you learned something from the video, make sure to like, comment and subscribe to my channel. If you want me to create other types of video as well, you can make sure to leave a comment down below, and I read all the comments. So yeah, see you in the next video, I guess. Bye!